Hi. Here's the uh, story I was talking about earlier. Just a little piece of it. Um, it's about the chasm in the Anter, and it's a house in the woods that the sorcerers have hidden um, with like a portal that's hidden underneath in an Anter, which is like a cellar, like a basement, and there's a cleft in the rock that's that they can keep charged, um, and they can use it to go to a different part of their world. Um, in the other story, I use it. It it's used the same way, um, but instead of um, Samuel, he he's going to the Yonderlands, but he doesn't quite go there. He ends up going to Earth instead of someplace else on his planet. He can't quite figure this out. Um, but for now, Silas needs to get to the Yonderlands because there's a basin on the other end, which is probably in reality where a meteor might have hit their planet. Um, they have no understanding of meteors or anything, so this basin is full of exotic gems that are probably magically charged, um, because they need this exotic gemstone for certain things. Um, Unobtainium or something. No, I don't know what I call it. It's just they have a use for these crystals, but it's not like a major part of the story. Um, there's also gold, but gold isn't that valuable on this planet. Sugar is actually more valuable. So after putting the horses to graze around the back of the stone house, Silas unlocked the front. It had gathered dust inside, but everything there was as it had been when he left it last. There were rough-hewn tables, chairs, and the small first room. He opened a hidden panel on the wall to expose a door leading down into the dark steps below, leading to the Anter below. Lighten, Silas ordered the candles to ignite. When they reached the Anter chamber below, Caleb brushed the dust off a chair before sitting in it. Silas placed the chasm key around his neck, making sure it was secure. Traveling by chasm was not a very safe way for a sorcerer to travel. If the key broke away, he might be lost in the Yonderlands and would need to find his way back through hostile mountainous terrain. If the sorcerer was not well trained, he might, and his mind poorly engaged, there was always a chance he'd lose his limbs on the trip coming back. Silas looked into the dark cleve in between the two slabs of stone standing against the wall. He ran his hand about the mouth. He still grew anxious, confronted by the chasm. "Time to awaken, thou lone dark chasm," he said to the space between the slabs of rock. Caleb snorted. "Speak thee with seductive words to her. She'll accept thee more willingly." "Aye, she is dry as a bone." Silas caressed the sides of the chasm. He had a sack of crushed crystalline dust he kept beside the chasm entrance for the purpose of charging it. This should wake the wanton beast's desires. He threw a handful of the dust into the chasm entrance, and he leaned against the chasm with his arm propped over the opening. He held the chasm key out from his chest, speaking to the chasm. "Pardon me, madam, I noticed thou art staring at my medallion. Dost thou come here oft?" Caleb poured a glass of bloodberry wine that had been fermenting in the antechamber a while. He handed it to Silas. "Gramercy, cousin," Silas replied. He had already plenty to drink earlier. "I don't believe the old harlot is ready yet, cousin," said Caleb. "Hush, Caleb," chastised Silas. "Milady, she's an ancient goddess, deadly and fierce. When the sorcerer woos her properly, she shall allow him to impregnate her, and take him to the riches of the Yonderlands." "She still seems unimpressed by thee, Silas," Caleb taunted him. "Art thou losing thy touch?" "I shall only improve," Silas announced. "Arise, my love, come to life." He stepped back and he threw down his jerkin, gyrating his hips at the chasm, and he spun around and shook his hind side in a primordial erotic dance. Caleb burst into fits of laughter. Silas hummed his way back to the bottle of wine, and he downed another glass. "Milady chasm, my dear, I confess before thee my sins." Silas raised his glass to the chasm. "I've wandered and I have lusted, prithee, forgivest my folly." He fell to his knees, extending his hands to the chasm entry. "Awaken!" The inside of the chasm there was a sudden flare, and it became charged once again. Silas rose to his feet. "Bravo!" Caleb clapped. "Now get on with it, so we shall be home in time for supper." "Oh, very well. Not a moment to gather my thoughts, nor catch my breath," said Silas, and he grabbed a pickaxe and propped it in the corner and a leather sack. "Adieu." And he stepped inside the chasm and drew his arms and shut his eyes. In an instant he was swept away. His equilibrium was thrown out only for a second. There he was again, after a few years of avoiding tunnel travel, on the edge of a mineral-rich basin. He hadn't prepared for the rain. He wished he hadn't tossed his jerkin aside. He worked quickly, using his magic to guide him to the valuable gemstones lodged in the muddy soil. The lower level of the basin was becoming flooded. I'll leave it there. Okay. Take care, everyone.